In the new luxury towers of Gurgaon, the elevators are voice-activated. But mine started answering questions I hadn't asked yet. Arjun, a software engineer, lives on the 24th floor. One night, the lift stops at the 14th floor, a floor that is still under construction and completely dark. No one gets in. Arjun says, "Close door." The lift doesn't move. Instead, the automated voice says, "He's still tying his shoe, Arjun." Wait. Arjun is alone. He looks at the empty, dark hallway of the 14th floor. There is no one there. But then, he hears it, the distinct sound of a lace hitting the floor. Then, the lift sensor beeps, as if someone just stepped inside. The lift feels heavier. The voice says, "Floor 24. 2 passengers." Arjun spends the entire ride staring at the empty space next to him. When he gets to his apartment, he checks his doorbell camera. The footage shows Arjun walking into his house, and behind him, the door stays open for 3 seconds longer than it should, as if someone invisible is walking in right behind him.
Never buy a forgotten item from a roadside dhaba on the Mumbai-Pune expressway. You aren't buying a souvenir, you're taking a debt home. Rohan stopped at a small, nameless dhaba at 3 a.m. On the counter was a beautiful, old brass bell. The owner said, "Someone left it. Give me 100 rupees and it's yours." Rohan bought it and put it on his desk at home. That night, at exactly 3 a.m., the bell rang. Just once. Rohan thought it was the wind. But the next night, it rang twice. He decided to muffle the bell with a cloth. But at 3 a.m., the sound came anyway, not from the bell, but from inside his own ear. It was a vibrating, metallic ring that made his teeth ache. He went to throw the bell in the trash, but when he opened the bin, the brass bell was gone. He ran back to his desk. The bell was sitting there, but it was no longer brass. It was covered in dark, wet soil, and there was a small piece of a red mauli, sacred thread, tied to the handle. Rohan realized the bell wasn't an object. It was a funeral marker. And by paying for it, he had bought the rest of the ceremony.
My sister's wedding mehndi was beautiful, until the stains started to form words that weren't in the design. Anjali's sister was getting married in Delhi. The mehndi artist was an old woman no one recognized. The design was intricate vines, flowers, and the groom's name hidden in the palm. The next morning, the mehndi darkened to a deep, beautiful maroon. But as Anjali looked closer at her sister's hand, the vines began to shift. They weren't flowers anymore. They looked like tiny, interconnected screaming faces. In the center of the palm, where the groom's name, Vikram, should have been, the skin had blistered. The blisters formed a different name, Adifir. Adifir was their cousin who had passed away in a car accident a year ago. Anjali's sister started acting strange. She refused to speak to Vikram. She began wearing Adifir's old watch. When Anjali tried to scrub the mehndi off, the skin underneath was already scarred. The stain wasn't on top of the skin. It had grown from the veins. The video ends with the sister looking into the camera, her eyes completely dark, whispering, "He's finally here for the wedding."
I've been a crime scene analyst for 15 years. This morning, I found a body outline that was 3 days older than the body itself. My name is Detective Ravi, 40. The scene was simple, a homicide in an abandoned warehouse. Victim was an unidentified man, dead for about 12 hours. The forensics team had chalked his body outline on the concrete floor, standard procedure. I noticed something was wrong immediately. The chalk line wasn't standard yellow. It was faded white. I called the chief of forensics. Who used white chalk? And why is it so damn faded? The victim has only been here half a day. The chief checked his logs. He confirmed all our teams use yellow chalk, and the outline had been drawn just 30 minutes before I arrived. I crouched down. I took a photo, adjusting the contrast. The faded white outline was slightly wider than the yellow outline. It wasn't recent. It had been there long enough for the concrete dust to settle on it, making it look old. I realized the white outline was drawn 3 days ago. I checked the victim's pockets. Nothing. Just an old, laminated transit card. I flipped the transit card over. Etched onto the back of the card were the coordinates of this warehouse. But beneath the coordinates, in tiny, precise letters, was a time and date, 72 hours before the white chalk outline was drawn. The victim had somehow drawn his own outline 3 days before he was killed, and 3 days before the outline was even marked. I looked back at the faded white outline. It wasn't a standard police outline. It wasn't drawn around the body. It was drawn around the shadow of the person who killed him. I live on the 7th floor. I always use the stairs. This morning, it took me 15 minutes to reach the 6th floor. My name is Devi, 28. I work from home and live in an old, low-rise apartment building. I use the stairs for exercise. I know my building, 7 floors, 12 steps per landing. It takes me 45 seconds to get down to the ground. This morning, I started my usual routine. I hit the first landing in 5 seconds. Then I kept walking. I kept walking and walking. I was counting the steps mentally, 24, 36, 48. I should have hit the 5th floor landing, but the stairwell looked exactly the same. Same dirty beige paint, same scuff marks. After 5 minutes of non-stop descent, I realized I was still passing the same graffiti I had passed 3 minutes ago. The building wasn't just old, the geometry was changing. Panic set in. I looked at the floor number display. It was still stuck on 7. I frantically pulled out my phone and called my neighbor, Mrs. Sharma, who lives on the 5th floor. The call connected instantly. Mrs. Sharma. What floor are you on? She replied, I'm right here on the 5th, dear. Are you leaving? I'm on the stairs. I've been walking for 10 minutes. Mrs. Sharma paused. Debbie, that's impossible. I can see you. I looked down the long, identical flight of stairs below me. Where? You're right on the 6th floor landing, dear. You've been standing completely still for the last 10 minutes, just holding your phone and staring down. You haven't moved an inch. I looked at the floor display. It clicked, 6. And then I heard a faint, rhythmic sound coming from the flight of stairs below the 6th floor. It was the sound of someone slowly, laboriously waxing and polishing the steps. And the sound was coming from the floor that Mrs. Sharma was watching me walk toward.